So, welcome to part 4 of the Entrepreneurship Glossary series, Customers and Growth. In the previous part, we learned how to build a product. But here's the truth, building a product is only half the journey. Real challenge is this: how do you get customers, keep them, and grow sustainably? In this video, we will cover 18 essential terms that define how startups win in the market. Of course, we're going to study all about customers and markets. Um, some of you may be wondering, why did we introduce product series first? Right? Because what happens is, as an entrepreneur, building a product is really an exciting thing. It is very close to our heart. Okay, so I thought it's always better. Let me introduce those terms. But in the ideal journey of entrepreneurship, you need to actually know your customers, know your market, and then you should start talking about or building, product, right? So these are the concepts used by companies like, Zerodha, Swiggy, Airbnb, Apple, which we are going to cover here. So if you want to understand growth deeply and practically, let's get started. Now, before we go deeper, let's look at the full landscape, right? These 18 terms cover the entire journey. You may take a pause and take a look at the terms, right? What we're going to do actually is from understanding your customer to acquiring them to retaining them to growing exponentially. So think of this as your growth playbook vocabulary. Once you understand these, growth stops being random and becomes strategic. Okay, so let's start with the foundation, customer persona. As I mentioned that when you're doing an entrepreneurship journey, you start with the problem identification, try to validate that, right? Look for the market, look for your customers, understand your customer. And this is where, and then of course, we'll talk about the solution. So customer persona really is the foundation. And the definition of customer persona is very simple. It's a semi-fictional profile, okay, of your ideal customer built using real data and research. It captures who they are, what they want, what frustrates them, and how they make decisions. Now, let's simplify this. Instead of saying, my product is for students, you define one person, you give them a name because human mind is very easy to relate. You give, you understand the age, a goal, right? A frustration. When you describe the person in this manner, there'll be a lot. Now, because when you try to build for everyone, you end up building for no one. Now, look at the Founders Lab exam. There's a character that we're using, Aryan Sharma, 16 years old. He's in grade 11, studies in Delhi, let's say. Uh, his goal is very simple, to build something real before college. So before he wants to enter into any college, he actually wants to build something, right? His frustration is school teaches theory, but nobody shows him how to actually start. His trigger is seeing a YouTube reel of a student pitching. Now imagine this. Every email, every landing page, every session is designed specifically for Aryan. That clarity changes everything. So remember this line, which is, if you cannot name your customer, you do not know your customer. So you should know your customer in and out. Now, let's go one level deeper. ICP, which is Ideal Customer Profile. While persona is about describing your customer, ICP is about identifying who is the best fit for your product. Not who can buy, but who should buy. So, who gets maximum value and stays the longest? Look at the example of Zoho. Their ICP is very clear. Small to mid-sized businesses, 10 to maybe 20, 30 or 200 employees at max, uh, who need actually CRM, but cannot afford Salesforce, which is one of the biggest companies in CRM. Every product decision flows from this clarity. Let's move to CAC, customer acquisition cost, which is very common. In short, we call it as CAC. CAC tells you How much money are you spending to acquire one customer? The formula is simple. Total acquisition spend divided by number of customers acquired. Now think about this carefully. If you spend 2000 rupees to acquire a customer and they only pay you 500 rupees, right? Which means in order to recover your 2000 back, you may do a calculation of, okay, what if the customer pays 4 times? I mean, becomes your repeat customer. You get 2000, but that's not the math is. Okay, because customer is paying 500 rupees for the product or service. There would be other costs that you have to actually deduct. It could be rent, it could be the cost of manufacturing or making the product, it could be travel, there could be other overhead expenses. Imagine if you remove everything, you are just left with 100. So which means that if you have to recover 2000 rupees, then the customer has to come back to you 20 times, right? So your business is broken in this case. Look at Swiggy. They spent heavily on discounts and ads. Let's say CAC went up to 300 to 400 per user, but the order value was 250. So how did it work? Because they were betting on repeat orders and long-term value, which brings us to the next concept called LTV. Okay, so here on this slide, you can see there are two terms, LTV and churn, most critical metrics in any business. First, we'll of course start with LTV. LTV stands for lifetime value. Lifetime value, right? Lifetime is like one word. The definition says LTV is the total revenue a business can expect from a single customer over the entire duration of the relationship, from the first purchase to the last purchase. Now, let's break this down. Most founders make a mistake. They think in terms of today's revenue, but real businesses think in terms of lifetime value. How much is the customer worth over time? The formula is very simple. Average revenue per month, and you multiply it by customer lifetime in months. I think better is, let's take an example. A Zerodha user pays, let's say, 240 rupees per month in brokerage. And the user stays for 5 years, which means 60 months. So the LTV becomes 240 multiplied by 60. It's too huge, 14,400 rupees per customer. Now imagine this at scale with millions of users. That's the power of LTV thinking. Now, one very important benchmark mentioned here is LTV to CAC ratio, which is very important. And ideally, LTV to CAC ratio should be, 3 times at least. And that's what investors also look at before they, give you money in exchange of equity or whatever. So that means if you spend 1,000 rupees to acquire a customer, they should generate at least 3,000 over time. If not, the business model is actually weak, right? Let's move to the other term called churn. Not turn, but churn. So churn is the opposite side of the same story. The definition says churn is the percentage of customers who stop using your product or cancel. So there is a very simple relationship, right? And that relationship between this LTV and churn is inversely proportional. Okay. The formula to calculate churn exactly is lost customers. You find out how many customers lost the last month, maybe, right? And divided by the starting number of customers. You multiply it by 100. Okay. So if you have to simplify this, you can imagine you're filling a bucket with water, but there's a small hole, tiny hole, in fact, at the bottom. The hole is churn. You can keep pouring more customers in, but they keep leaving, and you will never grow that way. Now look at an edtech startup, for example. Suppose they acquired rupees 1 lakh, or let's say 1 lakh students in a month, but 80,000 students actually left. So the net growth is only 20,000 despite massive spending. And that's why the slide says high churn plus high CAC is like burning money in a leaky bucket or a leaking bucket. And the most powerful line here is fix your bucket before you turn on the tap, meaning reduce churn before you scale acquisition. Now let's talk about the opposite of churn here, which is retention, right? As it is mentioned, opposite of churn. So retention is the ability of your product to keep customers over time, to retain them. It is measured by looking at how many customers or users who joined are still active after 30 days, maybe after 60 days, maybe after 90 days. Now, let's simplify this. Retention is a scoreboard of your product quality. If people keep coming back, your product is working. If they don't, something is broken. Now, look at the insight given. Even at 5% improvement in retention can increase profits by 25% to 95%, and that's more massive. The reason being, retained customers spend more, refer more, and cost nothing to reacquire. Take the example of Zerodha. Their day 30 retention is around 85%. Industry average is about 40%. That means once users start, they stay. That is why Zerodha spends almost nothing on advertisement. The product itself retains users. Now let's move to NPS, that's Net Promoter Score. This is very simple but powerful metric. You ask one question, and that is on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to remember this product? You go to any airport, go to the washroom area, and you'll find with a tablet this kind of thing. There's a survey that you might have received from Amazon or from any other product. Okay, so let's understand this. 9 to 10 are promoters. If you're giving 9 to a product or 10 on 10, you're promoting it. So you're promoters. Those giving 7 to 8 are passives, but those giving less than that, like from 0 to 6, they're detractors. And the formula to calculate NPS is very simple. Percentage of promoters minus percentage of detractors. Let's simplify. NPS tells you, are your customers your fans or they're frustrated? Let's look at some benchmark. Apple is around 72. Great. Zerodha is 70 plus. So some edtech, maybe during some controversy, for example, they might have got negative NPS. That means more people unhappy than happy. So remember one thing, one question can tell you everything about customer loyalty. Now let's move into growth. And this is a very common term, word of mouth, right? You might have, heard your friend or somebody approaching you telling that, hey, I applied this cream and this was so amazing, so soothing. Why don't you give a try? You also do the same thing. You also get similar kind of result and you tell everybody else. You're actually becoming a brand ambassador of that product. Okay. Unknowingly, you're actually telling them because you're liking. That's called word of mouth. Word of mouth is organic, unpaid promotion where customers tell others about your product. No advertisements, no budget, just genuine recommendation. Now let's simplify this. This is the best marketing in the world. It's very trustworthy. Okay. Because it's true. It comes from your heart. Now, why does it matter? Because it has zero CAC, first of all, and it brings the highest quality customers. Let's look at examples. Zerodha, no TV ads, for example. Mamaearth, first 10,000 customers came from WhatsApp groups. Parents recommending to parents. That is word of mouth in action. Let's take it, one step further. There's something called referral loop. A referral loop is word of mouth, but with an incentive. Like if you refer, you get some 500 rupees. When Ola started, they used to give reference 200 rupees coupon, and I myself actually did a lot of ride, I remember. The system works like this. User signs up, gets referral code, shares with friend signs up, both get reward, friend becomes next referrer. This creates a loop, a self-sustaining growth engine. Now look at Grow, the startup Grow. Refer a friend, both get rupees 100 in gold. This simple incentive helped onboard millions of users. So remember one thing, word of mouth is organic growth, referral loop is engineered growth. Now, let's move into one of the most exciting areas in startups called growth. And we start by using a combined term, right? Growth hacking. It's a noun phrase. Let's understand the definition. Growth hacking is about using rapid, creative, low cost experiments across marketing, production, and distribution to find the fastest path to user growth. Let's simplify this. Growth hacking is not about spending more money. It's about thinking smarter. It's about asking, what is the fastest, cheapest, more creative way to grow. Instead of running one big campaign, you run 20 experiments. Most will fail, one will work. And then you double down on that. Look at the Airbnb example. They didn't spend heavily on advertisements in the beginning. Instead, they growth hacked by auto posting their listings on Craigslist. Now, Craigslist already had millions of users looking for accommodation. Airbnb simply plugged into that existing demand. And the result was massive growth without massive spend. There's another classic example called Hotmail. They added one simple line at the bottom of every email. Get your free email at Hotmail. Every user became a distribution channel. It's way back, like in 2000s, right? Result, 12-month users in 18 months. And this is called growth hacking. Let's move to something called virality. Virality is when your product grows because users bring more users. The key concept here is the viral coefficient, K. If K is greater than 1, each user brings more than one user. That means there's an exponential growth. Now, let's simplify this. Virality is when the product markets itself. Take the example of ShareChat. Now, how does a product market itself? That's what we're going to understand. So, the ShareChat grew from 0 to 60 million users in just 18 months. How? Through content sharing. Every time a user shared content, the platform was embedded in that share. So, every user became a distribution channel. And that's the key insight. Build distribution into the product, not on top of it. Now let's talk about one of the most practical frameworks in growth called the funnel. The definition says a funnel maps the journey of a customer from first hearing about your product to becoming a paying customer and eventually a loyal advocate. It is called a funnel because many people enter at the top, but fewer come out at the bottom. Let's simplify this. Now, everyone who visits your website will buy. Is it true? No, not everyone will do. That is normal. The funnel helps you understand where are people dropping off. Because growth is not just about getting more users, it's about fixing leaks. We already discussed. Now, look at the Founders Lab example. Let's say 1,000 people see a reel, 200 click, 80 fill the form, 30 attend webinar, 12 enroll. At every stage, people are dropping off. And each drop off is a problem to solve. Now, the funnel stages are awareness. So they discover you, interest, they want to know you more, consideration, they compare options, intent, they start the process, purchase, they actually pay, loyalty, they return and refer. So remember, growth is about fixing the biggest leak in your funnel first. Let's move to one of the most critical moments in the entire user journey called activation. Now, activation is defined as the moment when a user first experiences the core value of your product. And that's called the aha moment. The moment when the user thinks, that's exactly what I needed. Now, let's understand the key insight. Now, before this aha moment, users leave. After this moment, users stay. Facebook, for example, adding 7 friends in 10 days. Dropbox, seeing a file synced across devices. Slack, sending 2,000 team messages. Sirodha, completing the first trade. These are not just random actions. These are moments of value realization. Your job as a founder is simple. Get users to this moment as fast as possible. Let's talk about how you do that. And you do that through a mechanism called onboarding. Now, onboarding is the process of guiding a user from sign up to their first successful experience. It includes tutorials, set of flows, emails, prompts, everything. Now, here's the reality: 60 to 70% of users never return after day one. Not because the product is bad, but because they didn't understand it. Look at this Duolingo app. They don't force sign up, first. They let you first start learning immediately. By the time you sign up, you already see value. That's a brilliant way of onboarding. Another example, Grow. They simplified KYC in a 10-minute process, complex compliance made simple. So remember, onboarding creates activation, activation creates retention. Now let's move into engagement metrics. You must have often used these terms called DAO, MAU, DAU, or MAU. DAO, daily active users. MAU, monthly active users. I think the definitions themselves are clear, but we'll understand better. Now, these measure how many people actually use your product. But the real insight comes from the ratio. When you divide DAO by MAU, this tells you how frequently users return. Let's simplify this. If 100 people use your app in a month and 50 use it daily, your ratio is 50%. That means the strong habit. Benchmarks, let's say, above 50% habit forming, below 20% is a weak engagement. Take the example of WhatsApp, around 70%. This is not a product, it's a habit. Now let's move to cohort analysis. A cohort is a group of users who joined at the same time. Instead of analyzing all users together, you analyze them in groups. Now, why does this matter? Because overall growth can be misleading. You might be adding users fast, but losing them even faster. Cohort analysis reveals the truth. For example, January users, let's say 40% retention after 3 months, June users 60% retention. Now that means your product is improving. Reverse it, and something is broken. So remember, cohort analysis is the lie detector of growth metrics. Now, here comes something very interesting. Okay. So, we are now going to talk about how great products improve through something called A B testing. Now, A B testing means comparing two versions, version A and version B, to see which performs better. Let's simplify this. Instead of debating which headline is better, you test it. Half users see version A, half see version B. I think when you're using ChatGPT these days, it gives sometimes two responses, option A and option B, and which one you opt for. Must have seen that, right? Because they're trying to collect how many users are actually using which and what they actually liked. And the data tells you the answer, right? Look at this example. Version A is something like try free, green button, product image, but there are no testimonials. The conversion is 3.2%. Version B, start today. There's an orange button, person using product, testimonials included. Conversion is 5.1%. That's a massive improvement. And no guessing was involved. So now look at companies like Amazon and Swiggy. They run hundreds of such tests. Even button color changes can impact conversions, significantly. So remember, great product decisions are not opinions, they're experiments. Now we come to one of the most important strategic concepts called the North Star metric. This is the one metric that best captures the value your product delivers. The one number that entire company aligns around. Now let's simplify this. Every team tracks different things: sales, revenue, marketing, signups, product engagement. But without alignment, everyone pulls in different directions. The North Star metric solves this. Now, here's the most important insight from this slide. Revenue is not your North Star. Revenue is the result. The North Star is the cause. Now, look at examples. Airbnb, nights booked, WhatsApp messages sent, Swiggy orders delivered, Uber rides completed, Spotify time spent listening, Founders Lab students pitching successfully. Now, these metrics reflect real value delivered. So, your North Star metric is the heartbeat of your business. So, let's quickly recap everything we have covered so far, from understanding your customer persona and ideal customer persona to acquiring them, CAC, to monetizing them, LTV, to retaining them, retention, churn, NPS, to growing referral loops, virality, funnel, to optimizing A/B testing, cohort analysis, and finally aligning everything with a North Star metric. This is your complete growth framework. So let's close this with one powerful idea. Acquiring a customer is expensive. Keeping one is strategy. The founders who win are not the ones who build products, but the ones who deeply understand their customers, who they are, why they are, and what makes them refer. That understanding is a true competitive advantage. Up next, part 5, funding and investors, where we move from building and growth to scaling capital. See you. Do like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.